A lot of our clients are asking, have the mortgage rates come down because the inflation is now under control? Well, before we dive right into the video to discuss more on that, I'm Pradesh and you're watching Let's Talk Mortgages. So coming back to inflation, to talk about how inflation really affects the mortgage interest rates, I have Iftikhar Mohammed, who is a mortgage advisor and has been in the industry for more than a decade. So Ifti, can you tell us what exactly is inflation all about?
My economics master, when I was in school, taught me inflation is too much money running behind too little goods. So that's the sort of economics definition of that. But in real sense, for the layman, what inflation actually means is, the cost of goods and services are going up, and it's going up at a rate, right? So that's the rate that they are more interested in, and that is actually what inflation means. So if today you paid, say, £100 for electricity, and tomorrow you pay £150, that means the inflation has gone up by 150%. Obviously, it doesn't happen with that high percentages, but inflation is normally looked at, we call it with a basket of goods. So there are so many components, like I said, electricity, gas sort of thing. There's food and there's petrol prices and various other elements that come into the picture as well. So that forms a basket of goods. So the cost of that basket, if it goes up by a certain percentage, that's the rate at which inflation goes up by.
I think what you're saying is right, Ifti, because the other day I went to the grocery store and I looked at my bill. The amount I spend on the same amount of goods I usually buy has gone up because of this thing called inflation, Ifti. So can you tell how exactly it impacts the economy and as a result the mortgage industry?
So inflation can have a big impact on the economy because that drives a lot of things. Like you said, interest rates are sort of connected to that as well. So if you take, again, layman's terms, right? So inflation is high. If the inflation is high, what usually happens is people have less money to spend, because the same thing, the electricity example I used, right? If you're paying £50 more on your electricity, that means you got £50 less to spend on something else. So it directly impacts their pocket. So that has a problem for them, because what happens is if they plan to buy a house and they want to save money, they won't be able to do that because this month they're going to be short by £50. So that has an impact. But also it affects your savings, right? So what happens is if the real income doesn't go up for a person, let's say inflation is going up at, let's say, 10%, but your income doesn't, right? Because it stays static unless, maybe after a year they have a review. So if they're doing that, what happens is your real income actually starts dropping because the inflation is running at a higher speed than your real income, right? So that's where you have a problem. So you can't really save anything. So that means you may even have to dip into your savings to make ends meet, right? So that causes a lot of problems. So it has a big impact. But of course, like you said, there is a relationship between the interest rates and inflation. So interest rates are usually used as a tool to control inflation. So that's what the central banks do.
Understood. So I believe there was a time where inflation was at 10% and we were all worrying about the mortgage interest rates being at 6 or 7%. People were struggling to make ends meet with their mortgages. So what is the inflation rate now and how do the rates look like right now, Ifti?
The good news is the inflation is at 2%, so which is good because the government's target was to get it around 2%. But the bigger challenge is going to be whether they can maintain it at that stage, because that's the bigger challenge, right? Because if the inflation starts running away, like you said, right, 10%, at one point it was 11.2%, I think, in October 2022. So that was at peak, right? If you look at the last few years, that was the peak. So compared to that, we're doing much better. So if they manage to maintain that at these levels, we might see interest rates starting to drop. Because like I said, there's a big correlation between interest rates as well as inflation, because they use the interest rates as a mechanism to control inflation. Because if the inflation is going up quite a lot, they'll start increasing interest rates. But the good news, like I said, is it's sitting at about 2%. About a year ago, it was about 8%. So there's been a gradual drop from October 2022, right? So we are at these levels, and I hope that we can maintain that, which will be probably good news for the borrowers.
Right. So I understand that it's good news. At the same time, I also want to know if we can get a mortgage just under 5% or anything better at all.
Yeah, I think currently the interest rates are there and thereabouts, right? So in theory, if we see that the inflation is kind of controlled, we might see rates starting to drop, right? So we might see more and more deals under 5%. So that's what we are hoping and praying for. That's what the Bank of England had promised in the past, but their promise is if they can get the inflation under control, they might start dropping interest rates, right? So hopefully we'll see those days coming soon, and let's hope and pray that they'll maintain those inflation rates.
Understood, Ifti. A lot of our clients are asking whether the interest rates will come down by August, especially the ones who are about to remortgage or whose deals are ending sometime in August or sometime in December maybe. But do you really think the interest rates could come down in August, and or if the Bank of England base rate would also reduce by then in line with the rates? What is your take on that?
It's very difficult to say because obviously interest rates are decided, or Bank of England rates are decided by a committee who sits on this. So last time the call was like 7:2, right? 7 people said don't increase interest rates. But like I said, if they manage to maintain this level of inflation, which is the target, so yeah, you are hitting the target, then there's a very good chance that you'll see the interest rates starting to drop. And of course, the money markets, which decide what rate at the bank is lending to you, if they also see this happening, there might be a downward trend, and we might see interest rates starting to drop even before Bank of England does that, right? So I think inflation is going to be very crucial for us to see over the next few weeks, and then we will see those trends popping up.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, that's right, yeah.
Ifti, what is your advice to all those who are watching this video right now at this moment on getting a mortgage in the current economic condition? Let it be moving homes, let it be buying their very first house, let it be remortgaging. What is your take? What is your advice on that, Ifti?
Yeah, I mean, the answer is based on individual and their needs, right? So if somebody has to move house for whatever reason, they have to move house. So you got no choice, right? But in general, if you are speaking, currently because the interest rates have been high, house prices have taken a bit of a hit, or house prices are not going up in certain areas, right? But if you see interest rates starting to drop, traditionally house prices will start going up. So that might happen. So people ask me when is the best time to move or when is the best time to buy the house. I always say best time is now, right? But of course, there are a lot of pros and cons that you need to consider. That's why you need advisors, right? That's where advisors become useful, because there is no one-fit-all solution. But currently, I think house prices are quite stable. But if you see interest rates start dropping, like I said, house prices will pick up, right? So still not a bad time to buy a property, I think.
Thank you, Ifti, for all of that valuable information. I'm very sure it will benefit most of our users watching this video right now. And like you said, the best time to get a mortgage is right now. And if you need any mortgage advice, feel free to contact us. We leave our contact details in the description box below. If not, you can contact your own mortgage advisor if you have one, or please do contact your bank if you're in the process of getting a mortgage. So once again, thank you, Ifti. And with that, this is Pradesh signing off from Let's Talk Mortgages. Smash that like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to comment down below.